And we are back for another episode of Joe's Knows NFL. We are at the divisional round episode. We have another one of those two-part episodes. For your first episode, I'm Giacomo Imperiali, joined here by Richie Zangar and John Palermo. We're going to be going over a couple of different segments. We'll obviously start it off with our not rapid-fire game picks, going a little bit in depth about each of the four divisional rounds. Going to be going into the Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes debate. Obviously, two notorious teams that have played each other multiple times in the past couple of years. We'll be really breaking down some numbers and trying to figure out what we like going into that game. And for our last segment, we'll have our wild card recap, a lot of questions that, have surfaced over the past couple of weeks and what we think is going to be going on. But we're going to start it off with our game picks. The first game of the divisional round will be the number 4 Houston Texans traveling to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. Rich, I'll throw to you first.
Yeah, Guac. Obviously, I cannot root against my Ravens coming off of 3 weeks rest. I am a little nervous if they're going to come out flat like they did in 2019 against the Titans. The Texans are very weak defensively. That's kind of like what I learned a little bit against the Browns. I mean, the defense had 2 defensive touchdowns to put them at the edge, and obviously those were probably the worst 2 interceptions I've ever seen. The Texans also could not run the ball at all. It's going to snow in Baltimore. Baltimore obviously has a very, very good run game. I think they'll win by at least 10.
I had the Texans losing, but things have changed now. Give me the Texans here. I really like CJ Stroud as the underdog. He'll be if this Texans team is just they've got something about them that separates them. They feel really like a magical team. They feel like they're going to go on a magical run, and I really think CJ Stroud will continue that into this game against Baltimore. I know it's going to be a tough game to play in because it's snowing and the conditions and everything, but honestly, I really don't care. I still think CJ Stroud is going to ball out, and for that reason, give me the Texans.
Yeah, I mean, I would have zero integrity if I didn't take the Houston Texans here, but I believe in it, and here's why. Richie could not be more wrong with the defensive pick. Houston Texans have the number 1 rated rush defense in the entire NFL. They have the lowest yards per carry allowed in the NFL in the regular season. So this Texans run defense is legit. I think that's going to be the reason why they'll be able to hold Lamar Jackson on these draws. And we've talked about it on the show that the reason why the Ravens rush defense is all good is because the scariness of Lamar. I think that Lamar will have his way at some points, but overall, I feel like this run game for Baltimore is going to be very, very weak, and that's a big part of their offense against the number 1 rated run defense in the league. And once again, Stroud in the offense, John, they're just special. I don't even have to pull up any numbers. You saw them. The Browns are a no doubt top 5 defense in the league, and they just blew them out. CJ Stroud looked like a spectacular quarterback, and if he wins this game, we'll talk about it in our questions. But if Stroud can pull this out, it would be great. And I think he definitely can. He has the stuff. He has the swagger. He has the mojo. So I'll take the Texans going to Baltimore in an upset to beat the Ravens. Moving on now. The surprising game here, the number 7 Green Bay Packers, after taking down the Dallas Cowboys, are traveling to San Fran to take on the 1-seeded Niners. Throw to you, Rich.
Thanks, Jack. This is obviously a Cinderella run by the Green Bay Packers here. Jordan Love really been stepping up after 2 greats, Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. Obviously going into San Francisco against that super team. We all counted them out against the Cowboys, but I'm going to count them out against the 49ers. I think that their run ends here.
So I really want to pick the Packers. Again, like CJ Stroud, Jordan Love, this team, they just have a feel to it. I know on paper, or I know on the roster doesn't really look the same as the 49ers do, but I really think this game is going to be a lot closer than people think. But I do think the 49ers have an edge over this Packers team, and for that reason, give me the 49ers over the Packers.
Yeah, I mean, Brock Purdy in the last 5 full games that he played, I mean, he had a 114 passer rating for 1,500 yards, 12 TDs, and 5 picks. I mean, that's a pretty good stat line. You can't mention this Niners team, their roster just from top to bottom is so talented. Even if the pass rush doesn't get there, they have so many guys. Like Nick Bosa will make his presence known in that game. Chase Young will make his presence known. All these linebackers. I mean, this Niners team just from top to bottom is just filled out with star talent. As much as I love Jordan Love and how good that they have been this year in the playoffs, I can't bet against the Niners. I think that they'll at least win this round. Next round, it'll be a different discussion, I think. But I think they'll take care of business at home against this Green Bay team. Moving on to our next game, the third game of the season. The number 4 Tampa Bay Bucks traveling to Detroit. Detroit getting another home playoff game. And the number 3 Lions will be facing them, Rich.
Yeah, I never thought that we'd be seeing these two teams play each other in the playoffs. I'm going to be honest. This game, it's such a coin flip because you don't know what version of the Buccaneers you're going to get. You're going to get the version of the Buccaneers putting up 9 points against the Panthers, and you're going to get the version of the Buccaneers hanging. I don't know what the exact number is, but hanging 38 on the Eagles. I mean, I get they're not the best team right now, but it's still impressive. Going into Detroit, that hostile environment, I think that Detroit gets it done and goes to their first AFC Championship game in a long time.
So I agree with you, Richie. I think this game really is a coin flip. There's Baker Mayfield has proved himself so much this year. Like, he's going to get paid after this season. Todd Bowles has done a great job with this Buccaneers team. He's led them back. I mean, they didn't really look that good last year, but I mean, Baker Mayfield, like, I'm riding high on the Baker Mayfield train. I'm loving this. But I will say, I agree with you, Richie. Hostile environment for the Lions. Dan Campbell's just got this team playing really well, really good football. They tackle well. They rally to the football. Their defense is really good. Jared Goff is when he gets going, he's really hard to stop. And for that reason, give me the Lions. But I think this is going to be a close game.
I think it'll be a very close game too, and this game really bothers me. And the reason why I'm going to take Detroit is that the Bucks' offensive line just isn't great. Baker Mayfield got sacked 4 times, and that was against a not great Eagles pass rush that was really underperforming the past couple of weeks. You're going to find a good Lions pass rush in this game. Aiden Hutchinson has been causing mayhem along with a lot of other guys in that Detroit secondary. I just think that they're going to be able to get after Baker Mayfield as good as he's been. He's been very accurate. His completion percentages have been very good. He's been getting the job done. But Detroit, I mean, I just think that at home, second round, it just feels like this Detroit team has some magic around them for this entire playoff run. And I just think that their pass rush defense is going to be a little bit too much for the Tampa Bay Bucks up front. So I'll take the Lions at home. And moving into our last game, probably the biggest divisional game, I think we can all agree. The number 3 Kansas City Chiefs traveling to Buffalo this year to take on the number 2 Bills. Matchup we've seen a lot. Rich, we'll hear what you have to say first.
Yeah, Jock, this is going to be obviously an incredible game. Flipping into Orchard Park, this is kind of a game I feel like you just got to throw the stats away. Everyone knows it's going to be razor close. It's going to be which quarterback has the ball last is going to win this game. It's just going to be if Josh Allen turns the ball over, it's not going to be pretty for the Bills. Bills are very banged up in very banged up in the defense, especially in the middle of the field. Which that gives me reason to think that Travis Kelce is going to have a field day. Obviously he's been bracketed this entire year, but he's going up against second and third strings. I feel like the Chiefs are going to come out because yet again you have Patrick Mahomes on that sideline.
Yeah, I completely disagree. I love seeing these two teams go head to head. It's always an absolute battle. I mean, but I just believe that it's Josh Allen's time and it's Sean McDermott and this team's time to take the next step up. And it's really hard to walk into Orchard Park and beat the Bills at home. For that reason, give me the Bills. This is going to be an absolute shootout of a game, though.
Yeah, I think it'll be a shootout, but the one thing that really is drawing to my attention is that the Chiefs' run defense is another just legit run defense. They can stop it up front. So I think that the Bills will result more to letting Josh Allen throw the ball, which again, we've seen him have those bad interceptions. We've seen him have turnovers. But I really don't think it's going to matter. I think that this Bills defense is going to come out ready to play at home. They've been top 5 in almost every stat for the past 3 weeks ever since they went on that run. So this Bills defense is just going to keep improving. They had a great game last week. I just think that they're going to be I don't think they'll be great. I think they'll do enough to let Josh Allen work and let the offense work and Buffalo take care of it at home. But with
Honestly,
that being said, go ahead, John.
I was just gonna say, like, I seriously, like, as a fan, like, I don't have any problem with Josh Allen letting him throw the football. Like, that's the quarterback he is. He throws interceptions, but like, I don't care when he's on and when he's firing on all cylinders, he is unstoppable. So you really shouldn't be. I mean, you should be cautious, but like, I'm not that worried about it.
Yeah, and John, with that being said, we're going to pivot that into our second segment. So we're going to call it the Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes debate. It's just a game that we see. It's almost every year at this point. I believe it's 3 straight years we've seen this game, or excuse me, 3 out of the last 4. So the first thing I want to bring up, and we can each answer this, is not all the time, but just in general, heading up to this game with the past couple of weeks in their first round, playoff victories in mind. Who are you taking? Just the quarterback, not the team. Who do you think is playing just flat out better football right now? Rich, I'll throw to you first.
Well, obviously, I think it's got to be Josh Allen. Despite my pick, I picked the Chiefs. But if you look at the Chiefs, they played one competitive quarter of football last week. Granted, the Bills probably played 2, but they just went 5 for 5, beating the Dolphins and coming back to win the division. Obviously, they're the hot team right now. I'll think that Josh Allen's really been elevating this team. I think that he's the better quarterback in this matchup.
So I just want to get one thing clear. What do you mean by Patrick Mahomes only played one good quarter last week?
He's saying it wasn't. He's saying it wasn't competitive. That they were blowing out the Dolphins for most of the game.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I agree. So the stats for Josh Allen say that he is not as good as a quarterback as Patrick Mahomes. But seriously, like, again, I just said this. Interceptions, he throws them. It's that simple. That's the quarterback that he is. Honestly, I don't care. Give me Josh Allen. I just like him more. From a personal standpoint, he's my type of quarterback. I love watching Patrick Mahomes lose. Don't get any more pleasure in watching it. I hate the Chiefs. I love watching them lose, but I just like Josh Allen more as a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get the Patrick Mahomes thing. I really don't have a problem with Mahomes. He is a great quarterback. But, I mean, with the interceptions, I mean, Josh Allen, the last time he threw multiple interceptions, obviously, was that last game against Miami. But in general, he's only throwing about, 0 to 1 a game. So it's not really as bad as people think, especially over the last 5 games. I mean, he threw for 3 touchdowns and 0 picks last game with the 93 QBR. I mean, that's a great game against a good Steelers defense that, Josh Allen straight up just cooked. So, I mean, with the hot streak, and again, he's just been elevating his play so much this year. I'm going to take Josh Allen in this game as well. And that'll move us on to our second prompt for this segment is who in general will elevate their team to win this game?
It's got to be Patrick Mahomes. I can just see Mahomes just leading the game-winning drive, just like with 40 seconds left. I can see that out of Mahomes. Well, obviously he's done it, but I can't see that out of Josh Allen. I don't know. I don't think he's the most. Josh Allen's clutch, but he's not as clutch as Patrick Mahomes. If you understand what I'm trying to say here.
So I agree with Richie. Patrick Mahomes has just proven to be more clutch. I mean, He did it against he did it against the Bills in under a minute. 13 seconds, I believe. But I'm still taking Josh Allen. Patrick Mahomes is more clutch though. I'm riding high on the Josh Allen train.
And John, I feel like me and you are on the same page here today. I mean, listen, you could argue that it wasn't Josh Allen's game against the Dolphins when in that must-win game, the last game of the season. And I'll 100% agree with that. But nonetheless, he did what he had. Excuse me. He did what he had to do to win that game. Now, it wasn't a pretty football game, but he was able to win a must-win game against the Dolphins to put his team in the playoffs. So I think right now I'm taking Josh Allen. I think he's going to elevate this Bills team so much to a win. And that'll shift us in to our third and final segment of this divisional round episode. It's going to be our wild card recap. First question we have today. How much is on the line for Detroit with the potential NFC Championship game looming? So they could host a home game if the Packers are able to upset the 49ers. So how much is on the line for this Detroit team? They haven't been in the playoffs in 30 years, and they could be hosting 3 straight home playoff games.
I mean, obviously, there's a lot on the line, but yet again, there really is not. I mean, obviously, hosting an NFC playoff game would be obviously just fantastic, but even if the run ends in the divisional, it was still a great year for the Lions. I mean, being able to see a playoff game like after 30 years, it like if I saw a Jets playoff game, like I'd be ecstatic even if they lost. I mean, I feel like the Lions obviously want to win the Super Bowl. I don't think a lot of people think it's going to happen, but I think that there's about 70, like a little bit 3/4, if you get what I'm saying.
So I think that there really isn't that much on the line. I really don't think Dan Campbell has been thinking about it at all. I probably think that like he's just taking this as another regular week of practice, another week of football, and he's just gearing up for just another game. So I think it would be cool to see happen, but I really don't think it's that like big of a deal. I just think it's Dan Campbell just taking it easy and just like getting ready and getting in the mindset and getting his team in the mindset of going out there and dominating against the Bucs.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just Ford Field at home in the playoffs is just such a game changer. I really think that it's probably one of the biggest home field advantages right now in the entire playoff picture. So I really think that if Detroit can win their game and then the Packers somehow take care of the Niners, it could be a very, very, very great path for the Lions to go to the Super Bowl. Moving on to our second question we have today. If Jordan Love is able to upset the Niners, around what position are you putting him in the quarterback rankings? I mean, statistically, he's been probably a top 3 quarterback in football in the past couple of weeks, statistically speaking. And he's just has looked like an awesome quarterback, taking down a very, very good Cowboys team last round. Rich, I'll throw to you around what number you're having him right now.
If they win the game, I mean, he's probably like around 8, 9, 10. I mean, I feel like
I agree with that. I think that's a good place to put him. I mean, he has definitely shut up all of the haters and all of the doubters on him. I mean, he is a legit quarterback, and he's a baller. Like he's a legit quarterback. He throws the football really well. He has really good pocket presence awareness. Like he knows what he's doing. And I agree. I think 8, 9, 10 is a good spot for him.
Yeah, 100%. You should see Jordan Love in the pocket. His reads just look so advanced. And once again, statistically speaking, he's top 5 in completion percentage at the moment, top 10 in QBR. I mean, his numbers are legit. I mean, this guy has just been absolutely balling. And I think I actually am going to agree with Richard the placement, though. I think he's at the back end of the top 10, or at least pushing for it at this point. I think that you got to respect this guy, especially for what he's done this year. Crazy how a couple rookies have been showing up. But we'll move on to our next question here. Eagles with a devastating loss against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think this will be a really quick one from all of us. Should Nick Sirianni be fired?
yes.
I don't know. Seriously, like he's a winning he's a winning coach, but he doesn't win playoff games. So like take your pick. I would give him one more year. If the Eagles don't go anywhere next year, I think you get rid of him.
If
That's
I'm
just my
Philadelphia,
opinion though.
if I'm Philadelphia, I'm throwing this man out. He's absolutely terrible. You saw that the second that Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon have left the Eagles, they just aren't the same team. They lost both their coordinators, and Nick Sirianni cannot call plays to save his life. He was carried in the regular season because the Eagles do have a very good roster. They have a lot of talent on that team, but the second that talent starts to dissipate just a little bit, and then their play calling just becomes worse and worse and worse, teams just figure them out so easily, and they just aren't a good team. So I think Nick Sirianni should not be the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles next year. I
Well,
think
what if it's just a coordinator change? What if maybe it's not Nick Sirianni because
but it's not.
The Eagles weren't like this in the beginning of the season. They were blowing teams out in the beginning of the season. So maybe it's something. Maybe it's coaching. Maybe it's just not Nick Sirianni.
I mean,
don't know.
that's also just on the players of the defense too. That Eagles defense and that secondary collapsed in the second half of the year. Listen, it could be a defensive coordinator change. Don't get me wrong, but for what has happened with that offense, because he's calling the offensive plays, what has happened with that offense is just absolutely abysmal. And the fact that he wasn't able to win a playoff game with this roster, I don't think he should be the coach next year. So we're moving on into our fourth question here. If CJ Stroud upsets the Ravens, is he a top 5 quarterback?
No, but I do think that he is very close. Probably he'd probably be around 7.
I was gonna say top 7. I was gonna
See,
say in that top 7 area.
and I'm going to have to disagree here. I was the one who came up with this question, and I really believe it because I can only name 4 quarterbacks that I would 100% rather have than CJ Stroud. And if he beats this Ravens team and has a good game, I think he's clearly top 5. You look at his numbers, he's already playing in an AFC championship game in his rookie year with not a great system. Listen, Nico Collins deserves every respect in the world for what he's done and turned his career around. But you're looking at the Texans overall, they just aren't a great system. I mean, he doesn't have like a really, really great support system at all. The defense is decent at best. I mean, it's just, I think he's top 5 if he wins that game and takes care of business in Baltimore.
I think we need to see a little bit more from him, but I do believe that he's in the top 7 area. If he beats the Ravens, I think it will push him and give him more of a case to be in that top 5 area. But as of right now, I think he's top 7.
That's fair. I can get behind that possibly, but we'll move it on to our last question of this. Not a wild card recap, but there's been some rumors starting around the NFL draft. So the Bears are in the process of hiring the USC offensive coordinator. So that could mean Caleb Williams could be going to Chicago very soon. And as of right now, the most recent trade packages and the best rumors circulating have been Justin Fields traded to the Falcons. So, Rich, I want to hear your thoughts. What does this mean for both sides, and what do you think of this deal if it were to happen?
Well, I think that obviously it's going to be a win for Chicago. They're going to get 3 top 10 picks, I think, and probably more. But obviously, you're going to have to look at the Falcon side of it. You're getting we talked about it earlier. You're getting a number 10 overall quarterback. He has a 10-28 record. Obviously not a quarterback stat, but he's shown some flashes of that he's been a good quarterback, but he really hasn't been consistent. I think that the Falcons should just take a shot in the draft. This quarterback year, it's loaded. I think that you can probably find a guy in there. Even though Fields is proven to play in the NFL, he hasn't really had a lot of success. Granted, the teams he's been on have been horrid, but I still think that you take a shot in the draft if you're the Falcons.
So this may sound a little insane, and I may sound like I have no idea what I'm talking about, but I personally don't believe that Justin Fields is going anywhere. I think he is staying in Chicago. And I also think that the Bears are going to trade their number 1 overall pick. I think they're going to trade down to maybe 3 or 4 and maybe 2 and take Marvin Harrison Jr. I really don't see them taking a quarterback. I think they're going to trade down and get more picks, which I mean they already have a ridiculous amount of picks, but more, I mean I can't imagine like they better go all in on this draft because as Richie said, I think the whole draft class is loaded. I mean, the quarterback class is really good, but the whole draft class is loaded, and I really think the Bears can take that next step up because I mean, this year it wasn't pretty in the beginning, but they definitely improved. They definitely, I mean, before in the beginning of the season, it was really hard to watch Bears games because they were just absolutely terrible, but it got better, and Justin Fields did progress. I think it's slow and steady, but I do think that the Bears can take this next step up in the draft. Hopefully they kill it.
I mean, I want to focus a little bit more on the Falcons side of this. I mean, I think that if this does happen, the Falcons are going to be a very, very good team next year. And the reason why I've hated on them since day one is that they just didn't have the quarterback. I mean, Desmond Ritter's not a good quarterback. Neither is Taylor Heineke. And the offense I'm talking about definitely has the talent. I mean, they have so many great skill players on the offense, and the secondary of the Falcons is very good too. They drafted a pass rusher, and the Falcons could be in contention, to win that NFC South division. And I think that they could be a very good team. I think that if Fields does get moved to the Falcons, it could be a great fit there. Now for the Bears, I mean, 3 top 10 picks would be really, really, really sweet if you're the Bears. I think that they probably will trade down out of the 1, they will take Caleb Williams at the 1, and then I think they'll trade down a little bit out of the other 2 and try and get more draft capital. But I think that the Bears drafting Caleb Williams, I think it's almost written in stone. I'm going to disagree with John there. I think that they're hiring the USC offensive coordinator. I think that Caleb Williams will be a Chicago Bear next year. But that'll do it here for part 1 of this divisional recap. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to send it right over to Jack Kemmler for part 2 of this recap.
Thank you, Jock, for the first part of the episode. But here we are with the second part of the Joe's Knows NFL divisional round. Here with Matt Freeman, Bobby Christensen, Dom Marfina, and me, Jack Kemmler. Let's not waste your time. Let's just get right into the divisional round game picks. This is a huge one for a lot of us here on the panel. The number 4 Houston Texans coming off probably their best win of the season against the Cleveland Browns at home. And now they're going to be traveling to Baltimore on a 3-week rest versus the Texans.
Yeah, this game really pains me. I mean, anyone who follows the show knows I've been on the Ravens since the preseason this year. And then obviously you can see over here the Ohio State flag. I'm a huge CJ Stroud guy, really pulling for him in this playoffs. It's going to pay me to take either one of these teams, but the Baltimore Ravens are just flat out the way better team. The Texans have had a fantastic run. Stroud looks amazing, but the Ravens are just flat out a better team. They're playing in Baltimore. I just don't see how the Texans could have a chance to pull this one off.
Yeah, looking back at last week, a lot of people had the Browns going into Houston and taking care of business, but CJ Stroud showed up, 274, 3 touchdowns, and his passer rating was 157.2. But going into Baltimore is a whole different another level. Not playing in your dome, going into Baltimore and playing away in a playoff game against arguably, well, in my opinion, the best team in the NFL is a whole different breed. And like Matt said, I mean, as much as I'd love to pick CJ Stroud as good as you've been playing, and DeMeco Ryans has been coaching so well, I think this is where the end of the road hits for something, the start of something special with this franchise.
Yeah, I'm not even going to hesitate here, and I'm going to take the Texans. As a Steelers fan, never want the Ravens to win. Even if I wasn't a Steelers fan, still don't think the Ravens are going to win. This 3-week break is really going to kill them, in my opinion. I don't think Lamar is going to come out looking like he was earlier in the season. Stroud has been absolutely balling, and I just don't think this team is as good as everybody thinks.
Yeah, I'm going to start off with saying Texans have the second best run defense in the NFL since week 11. So I think Ravens are going to have some problems running the ball, which they haven't really had all year. But I think this might be the game where they do, but they have the 23rd ranked passing defense. They have injuries to their slot corner and their strong safety, who are great in man coverage, and Ravens receivers really do struggle against press man coverage. So those two corners are out and safety. I think the man coverage is going to loosen up for the Ravens. They really don't have a great passing game, in my opinion. The Ravens, I mean, it's been pretty solid this year, and we have not really seen them do it in the playoffs in the past. Lamar, he's only won one game, and that's the reason. One of the reasons in the playoffs is because of his passing. Getting into the Ravens defense, 6th ranked in pass defense, 14th in run defense. This is a defense that you can run on, but I mean, Devin Singletary, I don't know if he's going to have some huge game against his Ravens defense. They're going to try and take away Nico Collins as the number 1 target, no Noah Brown. But Ravens have been allowing a lot of targets to top pass catchers recently. Tyreek Hill, 12, Debo 12, Kittle 10, Ridley 12, Kupp 10, Keenan Allen 16, all in the past weeks against the Ravens. And also the Ravens' main starters are coming up with 3 weeks rest. They might come out slow like they did in 2019. I really do think this Texans team matches up well against the Ravens, but you can just not look around at this Ravens talent and the coaching and say, how are they not going to win this game? I think OBJ and Flowers has a big game in the passing game for the Ravens. I think they squeak one out at home. Moving on, the number 7 Green Bay Packers pulling off the biggest upset of the week, sending Dallas home in Dallas, and they're going to the Niners also on a 3 weeks rest.
Yeah, I mean, last week's game, Packers upsetting the Cowboys in Dallas, absolutely shocked me. It was an incredible win for Green Bay. I'll give credit where credit is due. Jordan Love looks like he could be one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL going forward. Incredibly impressed with what they have done there in Green Bay. That being said, this 49ers team is absolutely loaded at every spot on the ball. I don't see them losing at home to a Packers team. Again, I think it's a similar situation to the Texans. Young quarterback, great run. No one really expected it out of either the Texans or the Packers, but they're running into some powerhouses here, and I think this is where the Cinderella run comes to an end.
Yeah, I mean, besides the Texans, obviously, the Green Bay Packers coming up with that huge upset last week. And playing a team like the Niners, just like the Texans are playing the Ravens, it's a powerhouse team with a team that's still kind of in a rebuild. First-year quarterback. I know he's been in the league under Rodgers and the last couple of years, but Israel's his first rookie season of playing. He hasn't thrown an interception in 9 weeks. It's been an incredible run for Jordan Love. And, going back to last week, and again, 157.2 passer rating, 3 touchdowns, 272 yards. All Cowboys defense has been up and down. I mean, this offense under Jordan Love just looks very confident these last couple of weeks. And, I think this game's going to stay close just because of the Niners break. But again, I mean, this team's, like Matt said, just way too loaded all over the field. I think it's going to be way too much for this Packer team. But they'll be back very soon in the playoffs.
Yeah, you guys said this 49ers team has so much talent. And I agree with you. Jordan Love has been on a great run, but he's going to keep on running. I mean, he's going to beat the 49ers. 49ers are just an insane all-around team, but I think Brock Purdy is going to make a couple mistakes. He's going to cost them the game. The Aaron Jones is on a mission. I mean, I just think the Packers are going to win.
Yeah, I got a lot of stats to back up this game and why I'm heavily on one of these teams. We started off, Packers are 9th ranked pass defense, 28th in rush defense. They're 26 in DVOA versus tight ends. They allow 50 receiving yards per game. If you don't know what DVOA is, it's defensive adjust value over average. Their Packers defense is 28th in DVOA and 25th in EPA. They have very inconsistent linebacker play, but they went in with a good game plan against the Cowboys. They blitzed heavy. But since week 10, Brock Purdy is 3rd in the NFL versus the blitz, according to PFF. 49ers add back Eric Armstead, Jair Brown, and Dre Greenlaw, all back from injury this week. 49ers defense with Armstead allows them to rush with only 4 pass rushers now. So instead of the past weeks when they didn't have Armstead, they were rushing 5 most of the plays. Now they're sacrificing not sacrificing, but they were sacrificing their back end. Now they don't have to. It really boosts the run defense. Armstead coming back, which could limit Aaron Jones, which is a huge reason the Packers beat Dallas. We saw in that game that Dallas ran all man coverage against Jordan Love, and Jordan Love is excellent in man coverage, but his passer rating drops 13 points versus zone coverage. Niners are a heavy zone coverage team. I really do not think this Packers team matches up well at all against this Niners team. At home with a good rest for the Niners, I'm going to take them by a lot to beat this Packers team off a high win against the Cowboys. Moving on for an NFC game, the number 4 Tampa Bay Buccaneers with a huge win against the Eagles at home, but they have to travel now to go to the number 3 Detroit Lions, who just came off their first win in 30 years.
Yeah, I think this game being at home for Detroit makes all the difference in the world. This fan base has gone through the absolute ringer, all the pain and suffering through the past decade. And I think they get a pretty solid matchup here. Baker has been playing out of his mind. Again, I'll give credit where credit is due. But Dan Campbell, I haven't been as high on him as others. I think that his reckless play calling is going to cost them a game at one point in this playoff run. I just don't think that this is the game where it's going to happen. The Bucs just possess zero rushing attack whatsoever. Rachaad White's been great out of the backfield catching passes. And Aiden Hutchinson has been on an absolute mission recently. Like 7 sacks in the past 3 to 4 games. So I think that the Detroit Lions will handle business at home. The crowd will be rocking. I just don't see the Lions losing this one.
Yeah, like Matt hit the nail on the head. Baker's been going off. I'm actually going to take the Bucs in this game. The Lions secondary is bound to lose them one game, and I feel like it's going to be this game. Baker Magic's going to keep it going, and they're going to pass all over this defense. And like Matt said, Dan Campbell's going to screw them one game this year, and it's going to be this game. And Baker's going to keep it going. As much as I hate to see the Lions fans go through that, I think they had their moment last week, and I think the Bucs are going to somehow take care of business here and come out with a high-scoring win.
Yeah, I'm taking the Lions here easily. This team has been through it all, as Matt said. I don't see them stopping. I don't see them, getting too happy over that win. They're the most determined team in the NFL right now. Their secondary, I think it could be a close game because of their terrible secondary, but I think that Detroit's offense is way too overpowering.
Yeah, this is a good game for me. I mean, I think the Buccaneers are going to have to start off by running the ball heavy. Lions allow 88.8 rush yards per game, but also they have been getting torched by the one receiver recently. Puka at 9, 181. Jefferson at 12, 192. CD at 13, 227. Then Jefferson again at 6, 141. Judy at 374. And then DJ Moore at 668. I think the wide receiver ones have been torching the Lions. I could see a big game out of Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. Goff also really does struggle against interior pressure. I could see a big game out of Vita Vea in the interior line. But the thing that really weighs this game for me, and Bobby said, I think it is that Todd Bowles is honestly a better coach than Dan Campbell. And Dan Campbell sometimes does lose the Lions game. Last year, we're going to go back to the Eagles. Last year and this year, every team that versus the Eagles, they ran nickel against them. This year, Todd Bowles came out very different. They rushed 5+ players each play, and they trusted their man coverage. Granted, that helps that A.J. Brown wasn't there. That's definitely why they started that game plan, but it still worked, and amazingly holding the Eagles to 9. I do believe the Bucs are going to stick to the blitz early against the offensive line, the Lions' offensive line, and I think I'm going to lean the Bucs to win here away after Lions coming off a high after their first playoff win in 30 years. Moving on, this is probably the best game of the week, the number 3 Kansas City Chiefs versus the number 2 Bills.
Yeah, I've said it all year, and I have to stay consistent. I'm not going to doubt Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs until they lose, quite honestly. I mean, this has been, growing up, we had the Patriots. That was the dynasty. They were in the Super Bowl virtually every year. They were the team to beat virtually every year. They had the best player on the planet every year. Now, the torch has been passed to the Kansas City Chiefs. And what did we say? 7 times yo, you can't count out Brady. You can't count out Brady. Everyone counts him out, and then boom, there he goes. He wins another Super Bowl. I think it's a very similar thing with Patrick Mahomes, and I don't think people have learned their lesson yet. I think that he's been counted out on multiple occasions throughout his career. He's clearly the best player on the planet. Whether or not he's playing that way right now, just overall, he is the best player on the planet based on what he can do and what he has done in the playoffs, especially. So again, I'm just not going to go against the Kansas City Chiefs until they lose to the Bills in the playoffs. So I'll take the Chiefs.
Yeah, we've seen this matchup many times in the last couple of years, or last few years, I should say. But what Matt just said, I've been told all week, the Bills, the Bills, the Bills, but I just can't go against Mahomes. His first away playoff game, and I feel like it's going to be no different. I think they're going to come out top. Although it's going to be a very close game, all game, it's nowhere near going to be a blowout. The Bills are another really, really, really good team, really good coach team, in Buffalo with Bills Mafia there. I mean, I've been against the Chiefs all year. Matt's been on their side basically all year, knowing that they're going to turn around. And I've kind of doubted that they were going to turn around, but now they were in the playoffs. I mean, the Dolphins, I was very confident they were going to beat the Dolphins last week. Dolphins in cold weather wasn't ideal. Chiefs at home, but they really manhandled that Dolphins team and took over that game on both sides of the ball. Although it was really, really cold. So I think they're going to continue to keep this going. And I think the one thing that we have to look at for the Chiefs is finishing drives. They kick a lot of field goals within 20 yards. I think Harrison Butker kicked like 4 13-yard field goals the other day, or 23-yard field goals. And the key, if they could finish drives, they could beat this Buffalo team by a good amount, and could turn into the best team in the playoffs again, just because of Mahomes and Kelsey.
Yeah, I'm taking the Chiefs easily here. I think one problem for the Buffalo Bills is their linebackers. So many injuries on that linebacker core, and I think that's really going to kill them. Chiefs love to throw the ball over the middle a lot. I think Kelsey's really going to have a big day. And yeah, as you guys said, can't go against Mahomes. I mean, he's been there and done it so many times that I just don't see him losing this game.
Sorry, Dom, you said what I was going to say. I think it's going to be a huge over the middle game for the Chiefs, but also for the Bills. I mean, I don't trust the Chiefs linebackers and Nick Bolton. He hasn't been great in tight ends, and he also hasn't been great in his ability to tackle QBs, which Josh Allen is going to be able to use in this game. I think it's going to be a very low-scoring game. I think Diggs will be locked up probably by L'Jarius Sneed, who, in my opinion, is a top 5 cornerback. In a very low-scoring game in Buffalo, I'm going to take Buffalo here just to squeak one out. I do think the Chiefs probably – it's such a tough game for me. I'm just going to lean Buffalo at home. That'll do it for our game picks. Moving on to our questions. Mike McCarthy recently was announced that he will be coming back after that embarrassing loss in the wild card round. 3 years in a row, he has lost wild card, divisional, wild card now. He has gone 12-5 in the last 3 years. Matt, do you think he deserves to have his job back?
No, I really don't. I can't see how you can retain your job after continuously underperforming in the playoffs. And this isn't like a magical run that they're looking for. They have a very sound team. We're talking about the Dallas Cowboys of recent history. Fantastic offensive line. Dak Prescott has been good this year. He was great throughout the whole year. The weapons are fantastic, and the defenses has been inconsistent, but the talent, again, fantastic. So with all of that and Mike McCarthy at the helm, and you consistently can't get the job done in the playoffs, it just does not make sense to me how someone can keep their job after that.
Yeah, looking at it in a broad aspect, looking at the regular season too, I mean, this Cowboys team last couple of years have been a very, very, very good team. McCarthy's 42-25, which is the highest win percentage in Cowboy coach history. Obviously, in a bit of a smaller sample size compared to other coaches, but through his 3 playoff games, they've lost 2 of the 3 at home in their opening round. And McCarthy all time going back to Green Bay is 1-4 in the playoffs. If you're going to be a coach in this league and you want to lead high level teams to Super Bowls, it doesn't matter what you can do in the regular season. Obviously, to get to the playoffs, you need to win games. But I feel like that comes with just good teams in general. But if you can't coach your team to a Super Bowl, you should not be allowed to coach teams like this that are completely ready to compete. And as Jerry Jones just making the decision a day after their loss that Mike McCarthy will 100% be the coach next year just makes no sense to me. You know, you see all over social media that the Cowboys fans are like done being Cowboys fans, throwing gear out in the trash can and just losing their minds because, all year, even me as a Giants fan, the Cowboys were one of the best teams in the NFL. Dak Prescott was arguably the MVP for the first 16 weeks of the season, right? And you just show up in the playoffs at home against a 7 seed and you get absolutely destroyed. That's just unacceptable in so many ways. And McCarthy does not deserve a spot, especially after the last couple of years.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of you. I mean, this is one of the most talented teams in the NFL, in every single position. Like they're they're stacked all around, and they still just can't find a way to win in the playoffs. I totally agree with you, Bobby. Regular season has been amazing, but if you can't make it past the first round, then he should definitely be fired.
Yeah, I'm also going to agree. I think he should have been fired. I thought he got totally outcoached by Matt LaFleur in that wild card round. You saw the one stat, wide receiver to separation for the Packers, wide receiver to cornerback separation. It was the most in the past 5 years of any game in NFL. That you got to show that to coaching. I don't know why they didn't switch to zone coverage after the first half. I don't know what they were seeing. I think Mike McCarthy just gets out coached when it comes out to these big games. And look, yeah, he wins regular season games, but he's playing in the NFC East. Giants have struggled in the past. Commanders have struggled in the past. And Eagles, yes, they're a good team, but you're playing in the NFC East, not that hard of a division to win that many regular season games. But we're moving on to a big question between all of us. How many players in the world right now, if you're starting a franchise, are you taking over CJ Stroud?
If you're starting a franchise for 7 to 10 years, let's say 7 to 12, there are 0 players on the planet that you should take over CJ Stroud. You got to look at what this guy's doing with what he has. He's got Tank Dell out for the year. Noah Brown's been banged up. Nico Collins has been great, no doubt. But he is a top or near a top of the league in touchdown to interception ratio, passer rating, and yards per game, He has been phenomenal. His leadership is out of this world. He has no problems in the media. He's a perfect guy to have on your franchise. He's a fantastic leader, fantastic locker room guy, and he just does not shy away from the big moments. Like you look at him in the first playoff game, absolutely flawless. He's taking shots downfield. First play of the game, putting it right where it needs to be, about 60 yards downfield. Like the talent on this guy is unbelievable. His demeanor, his mindset, just from top to bottom, he is the number one guy I would want to be the face of my franchise going forward. There are 0 players in the world I would take over him for the next 10 to 12 years.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you, Matt. There's 0 people in this world right now that I would take over CJ Stroud. Going away from statistics, like Matt said, going into your first ever playoff game, playing a QB who's experienced in the playoffs, who's played 15 games in the playoffs, and you go out in the first play of the game, you throw a 75-yard touchdown pass, perfect pass to your wide receiver 1 for a touchdown. And I feel like as a rookie, you always are going to have those nerves going into your first game. And you may start to build up and get more confident as plays go on, as you get first downs. But seeing a rookie QB do something like that with a confidence in that throw, putting it on the money is just something that you don't see every day. You don't see any. I haven't seen that in a very long time, if ever. Going through his play style. You know, I've never really seen a rookie QB as confident as he is in the pocket. You know, he's not scared to stand in the pocket and throw a ball over the middle. I've seen him many times. He did it many times last week. To all of his receivers, you know. And another thing is he spreads the ball around. He doesn't just throw the ball to Nico Collins. He doesn't just throw the ball to his tight ends. You know, Noah Brown's been banged up. He's been out. He's been out and in. Schultz has been a big part of that offense. But you know, he's just looked at a complete experienced QB with years under his belt, which he's not, and he's only going to get better too. And he's arguably, in my opinion, a top 5 QB right now. There's no way out of it. I mean, stats back it up. His play has backed it up. With the team he has backed it up. So I, honestly, like Matt said, all over the field, in the media, in the locker room, it seems like he's a perfect guy to start a franchise, and I would not want anybody else.
Yeah, I totally agree with you guys, but I think one person I'm taking over CJ Stroud is Patrick Mahomes. He's just CJ Stroud has taken the league by storm. He's been absolutely insane. Don't get me wrong, but I just can't go against Mahomes. Mahomes has had some of the greatest seasons ever, and he's just doing the same thing he did the same thing at a young age too. So I'm taking Mahomes over him.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody in the world I would right now to start a franchise. I'm taking CJ Stroud. In the past year, he showed up in every big game. You can go back to college in that Georgia game. I know they lost, but that was arguably his best game in college. Then this year, basically a playoff game in Indianapolis over the Loud House, and he goes out there and wins that. And then he at home, his first home playoff game with the Texans versus a team that was picked to win against the Texans, and he won. So I think right now there's nobody in the world you're taking over CJ Stroud. Moving on, this one's going to hit personal for one of the people up here. Recently, Mike Tomlin announced that he will bring in a quarterback to challenge Kenny Pickett for the quarterback position this offseason. There's a lot of quarterbacks you can draft right now in the draft. They have a first-round pick. It's a huge QB loaded class. You could trade. You could trade for Kyler Murray. You could trade for Justin Fields. Or you can sign. Kirk Cousins will be out there. Maybe even Jared Goff. Do you think this is the right move Mike Tomlin is making, Matt?
My bad right there. 1,000% this is the right move. It's not even a question, to be honest. Kenny Pickett has proven time and time again he is not good enough to lead this team into a deep playoff run. And if you look at the supporting cast, this team is a couple moves away from being primed for a deep playoff run, similar to how the Browns are playing right now, or how the Browns were hoping to play in the playoffs, securing a very solid regular season and then some momentum in the playoffs. The Steelers can be that team, but the problem is mainly at the quarterback position. This team is so close from being borderline elite, but Kenny Pickett being your starting quarterback is so poor, it is unbelievable. I think they need a plug-and-play quarterback right now, whether it's Justin Fields, Kyler Murray, Kirk Cousins, or honestly, I wouldn't mind selecting maybe a guy like Bo Nix, probably the highest floor of anyone in this upcoming draft, just to plug in and see how he goes. But this Steelers team, the defense is absolutely phenomenal. The offensive line has looked much improved. Obviously, George Pickens has had a great year. Maybe they're one receiver away if they get rid of Deontay Johnson, but the main issue is the quarterback position, and Kenny Pickett is just not the guy to get the job done. So I think it's very clear that they need to move on next year 1,000%.
Yeah, I honestly believe that it's not going to be a plug-in quarterback. I think they're going to go to the draft, and I think they're going to get a guy like Bo Nix, or honestly, I think they'll get Michael Penix. This team needs a QB to come in, a young QB, and come in and compete with Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett's still in his early days in his career, and he needs another QB the same age as him to give him some competition, to really put him into play his best football. Because we've all seen sparks. Dom's seen sparks of Kenny Pickett. Play good football, play good QB football, and this, like Matt said, this team is just a couple moves away from being an elite team. They made the playoffs. Mike Tomlin's been a one of the most proven coaches in the NFL, and he just needs to honestly get his O line figured out. Their weapons. I think they need another weapon. I think Deontay Johnson's a bum. I don't think he's that good. I think Pickens is good. I think Deontay's a bum. But going away from that, the QB, Kenny Pickett just needs someone to kind of kick him into gear, and get him back to his best football. So I completely agree with this move from Mike Tomlin, and think that this will only help Kenny Pickett and the franchise.
Watching Kenny Pickett every single weekend really hurts my feelings. I mean, he's been absolutely terrible this year. And I totally agree that we need to bring in a new QB. I think we should sign Kirk Cousins. I mean, that's just I feel like we need a guy that has experience in the league and can get the job done. I wouldn't hate drafting a rookie, but prefer Kirk Cousins definitely. He needs some competition. I mean, at this point, Mike Tomlin hands him the job, and he throws it away every single time. So we need to bring in someone to take his spot. To be honest, so yeah, I totally agree with this.
Yeah, I mean, I think they should be drafting a QB. That, in my opinion, if I was the GM of the Steelers, I think they should draft a QB and just move on from Kenny Pickett. I do not think he's a good QB. He wasn't that great of a QB at Pitt, and he still isn't that great of a one right now at the Steelers. So you draft a guy like Penix or Nix, who are both 24 years old and have seen a lot of football in their past time. I think you take one of them and take a shot on them to try and make a Super Bowl run in the next 3 years. But moving on, the Packers have kind of done this new strategy where they draft a QB in the later rounds. Jordan Love was in the late first round, where they do this and they sit him for 2 to 3 years, and then they come up and they're amazing. Is this a new strategy that teams should just catch on to, Matt?
I think yes and no. You look at the Packers; they have been absolutely phenomenal as a franchise with this strategy. You look at Brett Favre, you look at Aaron Rodgers, and now Jordan Love. So I think the Packers do this extraordinarily well. But then again, you look at the 49ers, they kind of tried this move with Trey Lance, right? And then they got bailed out. They got very lucky. Brock Purdy ended up being a star as Mr. Irrelevant. But I just don't think that's the way that every team should look at it. The Packers, sure, but there's certain things that certain franchises do well and other franchises don't, right? You look at the Steelers. You look at, AFC North teams like the Browns, Steelers, obviously Ravens. Those are ground and pound, hard-nosed teams. It wouldn't really make much sense for the Miami Dolphins to pivot and start doing that right now. I think there's some things that franchises do well, and there's some things that franchises don't do well. And I think for the Packers, it's a fantastic strategy, but for the rest of the NFL, I don't think it's universal.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think it's universal, but the Packers. You look at those three QBs. You look at Brett Favre. You look at Aaron Rodgers, and now you see Jordan Love. Right? Those were before Jordan Love. Those are arguably you could put those two QBs up in the top 15. You just look at the history of the game, and there's a lot of good QBs, but having these three QBs all in one franchise back to back to back is really, really impressive. And no other, I mean, maybe another franchise could do that, but that's not just a coincidence. It's a strategy that you could use, but I feel like it's more than a strategy. It's definitely coaching. Coaching definitely has to do with it. It definitely has to do with the relationships between the starting QB, which would be Rodgers to Love or Favre to Rodgers. They have to definitely have a really good relationship and talk with each other, because I feel like it's more than just watching. I feel like getting information from each other. There's got to be some sort of thing that the Packers do, more than the broad aspect of just 2 to 3 years of sitting. So I think obviously what the Packers have doing, or what the Packers have working with developing QBs, is definitely working for them. But I think there's more than just 2 to 3 years of their QB sitting out.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of you. I do think that for the Packers, this is a great thing that they have going on. But for other teams, as Matt said, they're all different, totally different kind of teams. So, I just don't think it would work for other teams to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's a strategy that should a lot of teams should be using. If it's going to work for them, probably not. But we saw kind of a mini strategy of it where the Chiefs drafted Mahomes at 10 and they sat him for a whole year to not play him for one game, and he comes out and he beats the MVP. So sometimes if these QBs in college aren't the most proven, like Jordan Love was, like Patrick Mahomes was, you kind of saw like the Panthers kind of should have done it with Bryce Love. They should have sat him for the whole year and had Andy Dalton play and learn under him. I think if a quarterback is unproven in college, I think you sit him for a whole year or two, and this strategy could work, but not to the extent that the Packers have done it. They've done it amazingly. Moving on, how impressed are you with Baker Mayfield? He just had one of his best career games against the Eagles at home in the playoffs. Do you think he deserves a major contract?
I am undoubtedly extremely impressed, and I think if you're not, you're just ignoring what he has done. His games have been nothing short of incredible to start this playoff run and down the stretch in the end of the regular season. But when you actually scratch that, the end of the a tough game against the Panthers, but specifically in the playoffs so far this year, he has looked great. He's been way better than anyone has imagined this year. He was battling with Kyle Trask, a mediocre Florida quarterback, for the starting job in the beginning of the year, and now he's leading the Bucks into the playoffs after a huge upset against the Eagles. Do I think he deserves a major contract? I'm gonna lean no. A major contract, I'm gonna lean no. You look, he has a very solid system around him. Todd Bowles has been great this year, no doubt. He has fantastic weapons. Mike Evans is an elite wide receiver, criminally underrated. Chris Godwin, fantastic. And then very underrated guys, Cade Otton, like with a very strong offensive line. Tristan Wirfs is a franchise tackle. He's in a very solid situation. Granted, he is doing a great job, and the Bucks, they've been very good. But let's not act like this team is a 12, 13 win team, right? They won 9 games. They won the worst division in football. And they had a great win against a struggling Eagles team at home. No doubt about it. That win speaks volumes. But are we going to act like this dude had a MVP caliber season and, he's going to be a face of a franchise going forward? I just don't think that that's where he's at. I think he 100% should be a starter next year, but major contract, I'm going to lean no.
Yeah, you look back at the regular season and going and winning that division by just the last game of the season, by just squeaking out a game against the Carolina Panthers. That's a way different point of view if you ask that question then compared to now after what we watched on Monday night. So no, I don't think he deserves a major contract. Like Matt said, I think he should start next year. He definitely found some sort of a home. Finally, since 2018, he's been trying to find a place where he's been accepted and he's found somewhere that he's comfortable. So I think he's going to get better with that system in Todd Bowles and the rest of that offense. Next year, I think they'll be better. But this year, definitely not a major contract. Do I think he should get paid a decent amount? Yeah, I think they should keep him there, but nothing crazy because he doesn't deserve that much money yet.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of you. I do not think he should get a major contract. I think he should just get a normal contract, nothing too crazy. I mean, he's been playing great football, don't get me wrong, but he's not close to a top 7 QB. So I don't think he deserves a major contract.
Yeah, he has been playing amazingly, maybe his best year of his career, and I think he deserves a 2-year, $60 million contract to see how he keeps playing, and if it keeps working, then you give him the major contract, and he actually is the franchise QB. But right now, with one good year, you can't base it off to give him that major contract. Moving on to our last question: Is Tua ever going to cut it? I mean, he can't win in the playoffs. He hasn't won a game under 32 degrees. What's the point of having him if he can't win these big games or play in the cold?
See, my opinion, I feel, is sometimes unpopular on quarterbacks, but it stays consistent here. I think unless you have a superstar, borderline superstar quarterback, why is he on your team, to be quite honest, right? Like, you put all the pieces in place. They did deal with some major injuries, no doubt, but Tua just isn't that guy. I think there's only a handful of quarterbacks in this league that I would be happy having. And then anyone that's mediocre, any guy like that, I just don't see why you would ever have him as the quarterback to your franchise. So no, Tua is never going to cut it. McDaniels is a fantastic coach. His offensive mind is unreal, paired with the speed weapons of A-Chain and Mostert and Tyreek and Waddle. I don't. How can you not thrive in this situation? I could thrive in this situation. If you can't get the job done in the playoffs, if you crack under the cold, like big deal. That's how football works. When you play in January, it's going to be a little bit cold, and every team's goal is to be playing in January. So is Tua ever going to cut it for a Super Bowl contending team? No. If you're cool with being like 9-8 and maybe fighting for maybe fighting for the playoffs, sure, he's a fantastic option. But if you have any real aspirations, Tua is not ever going to cut it.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep this very short. I do not think Tua is a very good quarterback. He has his accuracy problems. He's known as a very accurate QB though, which is that's the thing. He's just so inconsistent at what he does best, and that's a problem in this league. And he's never gonna cut it for a Super Bowl team. It's never gonna work out in Miami if they keep him.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of you guys. I do not think he's going to cut it either. I mean, I think the Dolphins still think that he's the guy for them, but I don't think he's going to cut it.
Yeah, I said it when I prefaced it. He can't win in the cold, can't win in big games. Well, what's the point of having him? I mean, they're probably going to keep him for the next year, and they'll probably, win a couple games in the AFC East and beat the under 500 teams and won't be any teams over 500, and then make the playoffs and then lose. And I'm fine with it. I'm fine with that team being in my division as a Jets fan. So if you want to keep him, keep him. But if I was the GM of that Dolphins team, I would be shopping him for a good trade because you could get a good trade package out of Tua. But that'll do it for our Joe's Notes NFL divisional round. So for all four of the guys before, then Matt Freeman, Bobby Christensen, Don Murphy, and me, Jack Kemmler, enjoy all the divisional games.